Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for today's webinar, Navigating Food and Family on the Cancer Journey. This is sponsored today by EISAI and Coral, and we're so excited to explore how cancer affects family dynamics, especially around meals, social gatherings, during the holiday season. Today, we're going to hear from some cancer survivors, caregivers, health professionals who will share the experience and challenges associated with holiday meals. We're hoping this webinar will impart some tips and insights to help you balance food, family, and healing during the year. We've got a couple of sort of housekeeping things that we want to make sure that we cover. We want to extend a really big heartfelt thank you to EISAI for their generous support for making this webinar possible. Their commitment to empowering patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals is instrumental in fostering conversations that truly make a difference. Without their support, today's important discussion of navigating food, family, and healing during the cancer journey wouldn't be possible. So thank you, EISAI, for helping us bring this community together. We'd also like to highlight the support from Coral, a prescription strength oral spray that provides long-lasting relief for chronic dry mouth. Its patented formula is clinically chosen to help protect against the discomfort and long-term effects of xerostomia. As a special offer to everyone tuning in, get special pricing on your first order and refills. Coral offers 2 options with your doctor's prescription and a coupon, or through their telehealth platform where you can use the code THANC, that's THANC, for your first prescription, or refill THANC, that's refill THANC, when ordering a refill. Click the link in the chat or scan the QR code and follow the instructions to take advantage of the special savings. So our sincere thanks to Coral for their support. So before we get started, I also want to remind you that next Tuesday, November 26th at 5 p.m., the Head and Neck Cancer Alliance is hosting an engaging webinar on festive, flavorful, and swallow-friendly holiday cooking. It's a free webinar featuring a live holiday cooking demonstration designed for head and neck cancer survivors and their caregivers. You'll learn great tips from 2 expert dietitians on preparing delicious and nutritious holiday dishes. You can choose to cook along or simply enjoy the experience. Either way, you can try out some new recipes as you celebrate the upcoming holidays. Next, I would like to introduce our panelists. I'm really excited for this group that is here today. Taking time out of their own lives during this holiday season to share their insights and their experiences with us. And I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves. So let's start with, I'd like to start with Cindy. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Ganz. I'm a speech and swallowing specialist that works primarily with head and neck cancer patients, providing rehabilitation to their speech, voice, and swallowing. I'm currently at Mount Sinai. I've been doing this most of my career, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Thank you, Cindy. Brittany, can you share who you are?
Yes, hi, I'm Brittany. I'm a registered dietitian. I formerly was at Mount Sinai, which is how I know so many of these great people today. And now I'm at the Lips and Cancer Center with Rochester Regional Health.
Thank you for coming today. And Bill, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Bill Brummel. Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I'm a 28-year cancer survivor, tonsil cancer. I've never had a recurrence, but my treatment, radiation treatment, did a number on my vocal cords and my larynx. So almost 9 years ago, I had to have my voice box removed because of the radiation damage. But I'm doing great. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Bill. It's wonderful to have you here today. Brenda, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. It's amazing to be with you all. My name is Brenda Wawa. I'm a 2-year cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with tongue cancer stage 3 in 2022. Went through a rigorous 14-hour surgery, and then went through chemo and radiation, and then started, through my therapy for speech and swallowing. And I'm here today. I can speak. I'm still journeying on the exciting, how do I say it? Exciting experiments of eating different things, which I used to do very well, but now it's a new experience. And I'm very excited to be here. I hope my experience will encourage you and make you enjoy this season in more than just, the food. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, Brenda, for coming. We're really excited to have you here today also. And John, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is John Burton. I'm a recovering caregiver. My wife had head and neck cancer 3 years ago, or 2 years ago rather, went through treatment, and I'm very grateful to be doing this because this is the epicenter of her treatment was right between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and so this is real near and dear. And so, thank you for having me.
Thank you, John. That's such an important part of this experience, and I'm so glad that you're here to share your experience. I'm so glad that all of you are here today to share your experience, because there is nothing like hearing from those that have been through the process and can really offer really insightful and helpful ways to navigate this part of your journey. So my name is Genevieve Lowry, and I am a certified child life specialist. I am here today as the moderator of this really phenomenal panel of people. Before we get started in our discussion with our incredible panelists, we're going to watch some insights from Dr. Ken Hugh, Dr. Bruce Colony, and Dr. Mark Erkin. These are our expert physicians who we interviewed prior to the webinar to gather their perspectives on a few key topics. So to kick things off, we're going to start with something a little warm and relatable. Food often holds a deep emotional connection for all of us. So we're going to hear from Dr. Hugh, Dr. Colony, and Dr. Erkin about their favorite food memories. And then we're going to ask our panelists to share theirs. So that gives you a few minutes to think of yours.
My memory is that growing up, every single day was dinner as a family, and you sat down together and nobody left until everybody was done.
A favorite food memory that I have is a very simple appetizer that I had with just some tomato, mozzarella, and basil with some olive oil and balsamic vinegar. Very flavorful and just very memorable.
So my favorite memory has to be tied in with my favorite holiday, which is Thanksgiving. And it's actually somewhat of a transformative memory because it dates back to childhood, which has evolved into my own immediate family, which has 3 children. And they not only share the preparation together, but also very much the evolution in terms of what we discuss around that table.
And I think I'd like to start with Bill. Can you share what's your favorite food memory?
And this probably goes without saying, but food memories are more often than not people memories or experience memories, and food is just the supporting characters. So I'm not a foodie, but for instance, I'm the 4th of 5 kids, and every year on my birthday, my mom would fix spare ribs for me. Now, spare ribs were not normally on our family menu for dinner. My mom did a great job of preparing the spare ribs. They were delicious. But this is a cherished memory, not because the ribs were tasty. It's that my mom would go to the trouble and the extra time of preparing a special dish for me. And, I have many other examples. Well, I went to a coffee shop repeatedly in high school and in my early 20s, me and my friends. The coffee shop, the food was absolutely unremarkable, but we had so many friends there, and we had so many late night conversations over a cup of coffee and a piece of cake. That place and that food that was served me became a cherished food memory. So I have lots more, but I don't want to take up a lot of time. But not being a foodie, what I remember are the experiences around the food.
That's such a great point, Bill. Thank you. Especially the patience it takes to make spare ribs and to wait for those spare ribs.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
really-
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really a lot of work to do that. And all right, so I'd love to hear from Brenda next.
Thank you, Genevieve. So I am originally from Kenya. Kenya is in Africa. And we don't get to do that much here in the US, but back home we have this very interesting way of eating. So I come from a very large family. My dad has 2 wives and we are a bunch of 14 kids. So when we were growing up, both my 2 mothers would cook whatever they're cooking, right? And then we'd all sit outside our compound, right? And they will put the food on a mat down. So all sorts of food, right? And then we'd all sit around that and eat. So the thing is that was making it so much fun is that I could dip my fingers in any other person's plate, and no one would mind that because, like, okay, I don't like this stew, but I like that one. So just go and dip my hand in that one, and we don't use forks, we don't use spoons. So it was so much fun because of the joy that was just around the sharing and the fun and just the upbeat moment of, we are here together, we are a family. It doesn't matter whether you don't like how I eat, because some people are just eating very badly. They eat with their mouths open, they eat while talking, but that didn't matter. It was just about being together and eating and having so much fun. And it took sometimes like an hour or two, just sitting down and eating and enjoying. Of course, we don't do that much here now, but I think that's one of my memories of food that I really wish I could relive that. But yeah, it's not possible. But yeah, that's my my food moments.
What a beautiful memory, and so sensory. Like I could just sitting on the mat and dipping your fingers in food. I can almost smell it and feel my place there. And food is culture, food is connection. And that's what you're both describing. So John, you're up next.
I have 2. The first was Trisha's in the middle of treatment and she can't eat. She got radiation to her face and she's not eating at all. And they're considering a food tube. And they told us basically, on Monday, if by Friday we don't see some signs of improvement, we're going to do a food tube. So the break that I took, I worked out for an hour a day, and then took care of Trish the rest of the time. And in my gym, I have a friend named Stephanie, and I told her this. I was upset about it. I told her this, and she said, "John, there's a Starbucks right next to us. Go get her the biggest Frappuccino you can find. Tell them to throw everything they have in it and bring that home to her." And I did, and she got that down. And then, so that Friday we went back to visit, and the nurse said, "I think she actually gained 1.5 pounds. What did you do?" And I said, "Frappuccino." And she said, "Oh, different, but it works, so keep going." And then the second one was with Cindy here. After Trish had her surgery, Cindy would give her crackers, and her being able to open her mouth and get a cracker and seeing Cindy's face say, "Yep, your mouth's going to work again," that's my second favorite.
Those are beautiful. Thank you for sharing those. Incredibly meaningful. The ways in which that people care for us through food, right? Like that's really a great demonstration of both how you and Cindy both really cared for your wife and her care for you as well. Beautiful. Cindy, how about you?
Yeah, it like everyone else has said before, food is such a social, emotional connection. It's really not even about the food. So I would probably have, so we all, as always, we have several of them. Thanksgiving's probably the most meaningful to me. And again, it's not about the food, it's about the tradition. And, we were never able to celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah growing up for other reasons. So Thanksgiving was always the one time the entire family can get together without any issues. And so it is the only time since I can remember as a kid that all of my siblings are 4 girls, all of our families are all together under one roof for an entire week. And so the celebration and the eating starts on Mondays with stone crabs, and then it's, every day has another event, with the Wednesday night being the girls' night with the cooking and the prep. And then it comes to the, Thursday of Thanksgiving, when one of my sisters and I go to my mom's and we get the turkey in the oven, and we start at like 8 a.m. And then it just keeps going until I leave on Sunday. And so it's just, it's instilled in all of my nieces and nephews and everybody who has, over the years has become part of it, like just how important the connection of sitting around the table is, regardless of whether you like the food or not. And it's just, food is, it's what brings people together. It is, the base memories of, with Brenda and with Bill, that's what it means to me. So, yeah, Thanksgiving.
That's beautiful. I always say I love Thanksgiving also because it's the only holiday that there's no gift giving. It's just about the food. And again, speaking to those connections and traditions that we have that have also evolved over time and grown and expanded as more people enter into those traditions with us. It's really it's a beautiful memory. Thank you. And Brittany.
Yeah, so I too, of course, have quite a few and childhood memories that sort of led to my passion and fascination for food, which is probably why I'm a dietitian. But one that really sticks out somewhat more recently was during Hurricane Sandy, which I'm sure many people remember. And I lost electricity in my apartment. And it was just a really stressful time. And I was up with a very good friend meaning Upper East Side, who had a aunt who lived in the neighborhood, and she had electricity, and she had us over, and she just heated up frozen chicken pot pies. And we still talk about it to this day. It was the most comforting night. And it wasn't the food. It was just someone recognizing, like, she didn't even ask. She just heated them up and gave them to us. And it was the best meal, and just felt good to be cared for, and just felt safe and comfortable.
Yeah, I'm getting a little misty just hearing these stories. They're just so really powerful to the ways in which that we connect to one another, the social aspects of it, the emotional pieces, and really so little of it is really about the food as much as it's about the experience of being together with people that we care about and that we care for and that we want to share those moments with.
In the instance of offering surgery to remove a cancer and also to reconstruct that area, it is tied in with significant alterations, normal breathing through our mouth and nose, the ability to speak unencumbered, and the ability to eat safely. Also tied in with that is the impact on a patient's personal expectations of what their appearance is. All of those things are at risk of being altered. They have an impact on how that patient interacts with others, what their own feelings about themselves entail, and the disruption of what they have always felt to be the norm and things that they just take for granted. And we all take it for granted.
Okay, so I have a question for the panel, and I will give it open for anyone to who wants to answer the question. What were some of the challenges and changes within your own home setting, regarding either your eating habits or your family? How did this illness affect either your eating habits or your family's eating habits as a result of the cancer diagnosis?
So in our house, Trish is the cook. So when we got the news that Trish had cancer, she said, "We're going to die." And I'm like, "No, we're not. This is a great prognosis." She said, "No, we're going to starve because I can't boil water." And it was an interesting journey. We also had, she was 15 at the time, a 15-year-old daughter. And our takeout bill for that year and a half was a gross national product of probably many countries. But it the great part was then when we recovered, Trish could cook again, and we actually saw food, so that was nice.
That's a great story about how families adapt to the change, and that you even had to step up and learn to maybe cook a little bit yourself too. And supporting our local businesses is always a good thing to do also. Bill, you wanted to share something.
Well, I don't know if this is specifically about changes in the home. Well, it is sort of, but there are very specific eating challenges that come along with having a laryngectomy. One thing about having a laryngectomy is it's impossible for food to go down the windpipe. So, real quick, when you have a laryngectomy, they take the larynx out, they move the trachea forward, do this surgically created hole in the front of the neck. And so the windpipe is totally separated from my mouth and nose. So it's impossible for me to choke on food when I eat. So that's one of the few silver linings of having a laryngectomy. But it is possible, and it happens a lot, to have food get stuck in the esophagus when you eat. So getting it unstuck is a process of, trying to swallow, putting your neck in different positions, maybe taking a little bit of water. You don't want to take too much water, because if it's blocked thoroughly, the water will just come up your nose. So it can take 30 seconds to 35 minutes to work it down. And if you can't work it down, you have to cough it up. So that's always sort of embarrassing to do that. It really takes us longer to swallow. It's almost impossible for us to eat and talk at the same time. So meals are, as you know, shared, communal, family practices, and ours are very, very, very quiet. One way that our practices at home changed, we got away, but we're still getting away from meals around the table, which is something I really miss. But because I can't talk, we usually just go in front of the TV and watch one of the recorded late night shows or something else. So it's really difficult. But I sort of look at it as dealing with food as the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It takes a long time to get to acceptance. Now, I got through denial and anger and bargaining very quickly, but I spent a long time on depression, and now I'm at least I'm at acceptance with a little bit of depression mixed in from time to time.
Thank you, Bill. I think I think it's so important also just to understand the mechanics of what the experience is like.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing in detail that process.
And the process of eating almost takes over. Just sort of the mechanical process of eating takes over for me.
Yeah. And the time and energy that it takes.
Yeah.
So it pulls away from the ability to socialize. So
Exactly.
I appreciate you really saying that you have come to a place where you are now, sitting in front of the TV. I think in some ways it gives people permission to be like, this is okay to do this. There's other spaces where we come together to have conversation and talk and share our lives, that this, when we eat together, isn't that space anymore. And so you've really hopefully you've given people some permission to think about it that way, where people are able to say, you know what, this is where this happens. I can let go of that, so that knowing that it's okay, that I have to reframe the dinner time.
Right. And it's mostly difficult when it's just me and my wife eating, because she doesn't want to run a monologue during dinner. But if we have guests or family members over, I really enjoy sitting at the dinner table still. And even if I'm just mostly listening to the conversation, that does my heart good.
Wonderful. That brings me to the next question of how does this affect your relationship to family, friends, or even your own self-image? Brenda, would you like to answer that question?
You know, when Bill was talking, I was like, huh, maybe Bill lives in my house and I didn't know. Because the challenges he's talking about, you know, not being able to eat and speak at the same time, being so conscious about the people around you and what is on the table to eat, you know, just the whole essence of figuring out what can I eat and what I cannot eat is really, really taxing, especially when you're with people around you. So with family, it's manageable because then I can tell my husband, Bobby, hey, I won't eat. Let you guys eat, you know, when you're done, because I take longer to eat. So it will take so much pressure on me if I have to go somewhere where people are eating and I know I won't beat that time and finish eating with everyone else. Or I won't be able to find something that I'm comfortable eating without being afraid to choke in that food and embarrass myself. So the result of that will be I will take the option of just not going out or just not going to interact with people. Or if I do have to interact with people from outside, it should be people who are very close to me, who understand what I'm going through, and who I know they will not be looking at me with a side eye or just in their heads wondering, oh my gosh, is she going to choke on that food? Is she going to be okay? Or if I don't eat, they will not ask questions. So in many ways, it really, it changes so much dynamics about how we interact with people, how we eat, how, you know, what food means to us. Because then for me, my perspective about food wasn't so much what I'm eating, but it's how is this food enhancing me in terms of my health, but also how is it portraying me or helping me to portray myself before people. So if I feel it's going to hurt how I look before people, then I won't eat it. I will just ask for a glass of water. And if I'm asking for a glass of water, I'm like, you better not talk to me when I'm sipping this water. Because even sipping that water, it's an effort. I have to drink it carefully to make sure that I'm not choking on this water. And then I start coughing in front of people and then everyone is worried about me. So it really does change a lot of dynamics on our interaction with people and the choices we make about what we eat and what we cook. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to all of these and I'm just like, oh, like, like Brenda's my patient, so, I've been doing this for so long. One of the things that I often tell patients, when they're starting, at any phase of the recovery, and, as you know, that, your recovery is always, so because the effects of the treatment are long lasting and they evolve over time. So, I often, as a tip to my patients and family members, is if they're going to be in a social situation and they don't know what the food is going to be and they're not really sure, what they're going to be, doing, to make sure that you're eating something beforehand so you're not starving, so you're not worried about getting, the food into you and having to eat fast and waiting to talk and, having to navigate between, socializing and actually getting your nutrition. So that's just kind of like a little tip, just so you can be part of the party and part of the conversation, without having to worry about, having a choking episode or coughing or just not being able, trying to speak mid-sentence, because invariably, whenever you're sitting around a dinner table, someone asks you a question the second you put food in your mouth, and so, patients who are dealing with swallowing issues related to their head and neck cancer have to be very mindful of those things. So.
Cindy, I've had the Laryngectomee for 9 years now, almost 9 years now. My wife still will ask me a question right as I take a bite. And then she goes, oh, I'm sorry. But it happens obviously she's not doing it intentionally, but it happens all the time. And that's great advice about eating a little bit, having a snack, before you go out or before you eat with guests or an extended family. I do that all the time.
Yeah, it's great advice. I think that's um, I think even thinking about what Brenda was saying, like really thinking about who is going to be there, what you feel comfortable with in that space. And then being, planning for that, you have to sort of think through like who's going to be there? Do I feel comfortable eating in front of them? Am I not comfortable? Do they know my story? Do they not know my story? And then being able to really make good informed decisions about what you feel comfortable with in that space, and not really worrying about whether others are comfortable with you eating or not eating, but what you feel. And I think it's really important to focus on what you feel really important, what is important to you in that space and how comfortable you feel. Wonderful. I don't know, did the other two have something else say, Brittany or John, did you have something you wanted to share? You both sort of looked a little like yeah.
No, I think two things are important in that setting. The first is dignity. Dignity and normalization. If you can create those two, and Cindy's right, we used to bring smoothies. We used to do a smoothie an hour before we did anything. But Trish would still move the food around on her plate, and I would sneak bites of it so it would look like she was eating. So when we handed back a plate, there was like I gained a little bit during this period, but anything you can do to add dignity to the process and normalization, I think changes the whole experience.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, John. And also, as Brenda and Bill were talking, and I've been doing this for so long, and I think it's so important for people to understand the pressures and the challenges, just emotionally and physically, that patients are undergoing, just to hopefully get to a point of that dignity and that normalization, and just the anxieties that it can create around a simple thing like that we all take for granted, about sitting down for a meal or a cup of coffee with somebody. It's just it affects, head and neck cancer treatments affect all aspects of socialization, not only eating and drinking, but also speaking, so it's, I think it's just really amazing that you guys are willing to share these experiences. Thank you.
And John, that's a great point about trying to create dignity. People who had a laryngectomy, at least at the beginning, and by beginning I mean a year or two after surgery, most feel embarrassment and shame by the way they appear and sound and the way they have to eat even. So that in itself, they tend to isolate themselves from the public, friends, and even family. So it's a big issue. And I love the fact that you would sneak little bits of food from your wife's plate. That's a true caregiver.
Brittany, I wanted to give you a moment to share.
I would thank you. I was mostly just agreeing with what everyone said, because I think the main point, right, is to try your best to not avoid these social situations that are so important for us. And I think all the tips given is exactly what I often recommend as well to patients, is find a way, obviously, to make sure you're getting in that nutrition. We all know that's so important for treatment, post, cancer survivorship. But don't avoid those social situations if you can help it, because that's so important for your mental health too.
I think finding what works for you. And I think that, eating something before you go, as John said, or if your spouse is willing to eat half your meal, that's great too. Thinking about what is really important, where the spaces where you feel safe and comfortable, and how you want to share your story with others. I think those are really important key factors, and remembering also that food is nutrition. It gives us energy. But we can still be social and active participants in our lives, and separate food from for ourselves from some of those experiences in ways that are still healthy for us. Excellent. That was a really great discussion. Thank you all so much. So up next, we hopefully, fingers crossed, have a brief video where some of our expert physicians share what they feel are, looks like it's working, share what they feel are important things that caregivers and family members should know as their loved ones move through their treatment journey.
It's imperative for patients and family to understand what the impact of that treatment is going to be, whether it's having a permanent tracheostomy to how a patient's going to engage in family conversations around the dinner table to the impact on consuming food, which takes on such a huge part of the dynamic that patients have with family and friends. Very importantly, how long it will take them to consume a meal. And often as clinicians, we celebrate that a patient's taking all of their nutrition by mouth. And that's one of the milestones.
I try to make everyone aware of what to expect. You know, it's a very tough time, the last several weeks of treatment, when you're getting radiation and chemo on top of that. And it leads to significant discomfort, difficulties with eating, interacting with people sometimes the last several weeks of treatment. The partner, the children, they see the struggle and they're always saying, you have to eat, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it makes it very, very difficult. And there's a lot of stress. We're constantly there to encourage and cheerlead, and not just being a doctor, but giving support and encouragement to get through this.
I want to give people a moment to also sort of process what was just said, and if they want, and if anybody in the panel would like to add to or comment on that, or you could even think or ask or think about what were some of your worries and concerns that you had when you were diagnosed or throughout your journey.
Maybe I could answer that, Genevieve. I remember the day that I went into the hospital and met with Dr. Akin and Cindy and the team before my surgery, and they were trying to explain to me, you know, what would be like after my surgery. To be honest, I didn't really understand what that meant. It didn't register in my head what it meant that I would not be able to eat, what I would not be able, that I would not be able to speak, right? And I remember filling in this survey, which I also went back home with, to just feed in that information. It never occurs to your mind, you know, the impact of the surgery and the treatment until you're in it. And I think that also extends to the caregivers. And the point where Dr. Akin was saying, or Dr. Colony was saying that, you know, as caregivers, sometimes we feel like they're doing the right thing to tell their family members, you have to eat, you have to do this. It's important for you to do this. So they are helping in terms of encouraging, but sometimes it's very frustrating when you know you're trying very hard, but you're not able to chew that food well enough to be comfortable to swallow it, or you're not able to pronounce those words comfortably for people to understand, you know, what you're saying. So for me, before the surgery, to be honest, what Cindy and Dr. Akin were telling me, I just didn't know what was that until after the process. Then I realized, oh my goodness, it takes an effort to speak. It does take an effort to eat. It takes an effort to just chew and turn the food around the mouth and swallow it, right? And just being able to appreciate that, you know, it's a process that I have to go through. I have to be patient with myself. And I kept on telling my husband, you have to be patient with me because it's so difficult. It's so hard for me to go through this and be comfortable. And still remember what Brittany was telling me with all the visits, Brenda, we have to add those calories. So you have to try and eat and add those calories, right? So the pressure is there, not just for myself, but pressure from my family members who love me so much. They want me to get well. Pressure from my caregivers because they know that I can do it. They know, yes, they understand the pressure, but they know I have to cover that milestone to be where I need to be for them to also say that, yes, now you're okay. So all that rounded up together, it's just a process that as a patient and as a caregiver, you have to allow yourself to go through. And then when the days are bad and I'm not able to eat and I'm just tired and I'm just fed up, I'm like, you know what, guys, just let me be. I love you, but for today, I just want to be alone, you know. But tomorrow will be a better day. I'll be able to take more mashed potatoes. I'll be able to take my Ensure. I'll be able to swallow more. You know, every day is a process, but then it's just allowing the patient to go through that transition because it's not easy.
Yeah, Brenda, it's so interesting to hear you say that, and it's, what Dr. Erkin and Dr. Colony and with Brittany, and what we always do is like, we try as best we can to set expectations, but the truth of the matter is we're not going through it, so we have the expertise and the experience to help hopefully guide you through the process and set expectations as best we can, knowing full well that you're not going to know what any of that means until it's on the other end of and you're on that other trajectory of the healing process. One of the things I always tell my patients is about especially when they're going through their chemo and radiation, is that every meal is going to be a fight. It's going to be a battle, and sometimes you're going to win the battle and sometimes you won't. Doesn't matter. 3 hours later, you start the battle again, and so you're going to have good days and bad days, and that's just it. It's a bad day. It's not, you have to kind of just live for the moment. And that's just so hard to do when you just feel so miserable and you're just tired, and the level of fatigue that's associated with everything that you're going through. It's a lot that patients have to bear. And their families, their caregivers are, just chasing you like, come on, eat. Yeah, if I would, I could, so it's a great that you share that. And I thank you.
I think so much of what you're describing, Brenda, also sounds very much like grace, right? Like just giving yourself the grace to have a bad day, and others giving you that grace also to create the space for you to be able to just be like, today's not the day. I'll start fresh again tomorrow, right? It's like, it's like exercise. Today I didn't do it, but that's all right. I'm not going to beat myself up all day about this. I'm just going to start fresh again tomorrow, right? And just really giving yourself, giving yourselves the grace that you need to, to really work through whatever the challenges are that you're having. I think it connects back to what Bill said earlier in our conversation about the anger, the denial, the bargaining, the depression, the acceptance, right? Like just getting to a space where you feel like I'm okay with what's going with my feelings right now, and allowing that space for those things to happen.
Yeah, there's a word that rhymes with grace that we used a lot, and it was pace. And I would tell Trish, we're not aiming. Trish's treatment ended December 30th. And, I would keep saying, we're not looking for January 1st for you to be better. We're looking for September 15th, you can have cereal. And because people, like I did too, you have this perception that once treatment's over, you're better. And it's not the case. You have to think months and even years in advance, and put the bar out there and celebrate. Another important thing too, for us at least, was celebrate the small wins. Cindy gives you a cracker and your mouth gets around the cracker that day. That's a month. Congrats. We had a good month then. And just go in small steps.
This is a comment that's not as specific to swallowing and eating, but sort of a global picture, big picture. If you would have asked me when I was about to undergo my laryngectomy, doctor was absolutely trying to convince me to do it because I was skeptical and I stalled. If you would have asked me back then how I was going to get through having a laryngectomy, which means living without a voice box, speaking through a artificial voice prosthesis, and breathing through a hole in my neck, and I could have added, the problems with eating. If you had asked me before I went through the surgery, how I was going to deal with that. I would have told you that you could find me in the fetal position in bed for probably the rest of my life. And metaphorically, that's exactly what happened for about 6-9 months. I couldn't cope with my new deficits or find my place in the world. The funny thing is, that's not what happened. And it's not because I'm the least bit special or the least bit extraordinary. It's because, and I really believe this, it's because I'm like everybody else. I'm like most people. I think we are all stronger and more resilient than we know at the beginning of the crisis. And sometimes it just takes overwhelming adversity for us to find that out. But with patience, we find that out. And with action, I think that action is the antidote to anxiety.
Thank you, Bill. I think, thank you to all of you. I think that's really some powerful stuff. I think it's quite a testament also to the human spirit and what we are truly capable of when we are put in challenging situations. So thank you.
I also think, just one more thing to that, to Genevieve, and with what John was saying is it's the patients and finding themselves that where they are and what they truly are made of. But I can't, from all of my experience, seeing the patients and their caregivers and what that support is, even if the support is, get away from me, I don't want you to talk to me now, or yay, this is the best win, you just ate a cracker, and the advocacy that patients, caregivers will provide is just really kind of also instrumental in getting people past that 6 to 9 months or whatever it is that they're going through to get through the treatment.
Thank you, Cindy. That brings us to, that's a great segue into our next question, about how did people learn to navigate when to offer support, and how do you learn to navigate when to ask for support? So, I think to John, Brittany, and Cindy, I'd like to know, how did you learn to navigate when it was okay to offer, and when was the time to kind of back off? And for Brenda and Bill to think about, how did you ask for it, or how did you, what was asking for help like?
Well, I think for our experience, I think as a caregiver, you're always offering support, and sometimes, or you're always giving support. Sometimes that support is disappearing, but you're always, you have to always be in the mentality of this minute they need support, this minute they need support, and this minute they need support. And you become, and it's so hard because a lot of the asking for support, and you guys can speak to this better than me, it isn't verbal. It's nonverbal. It's trying to move in a chair and you can't, and having somebody come and just raise the bar so your feet go up. And it's looking at a plate of food and not being able to eat it, and having somebody just come by and swoop it up and throw it in the garbage, and we'll go tomorrow. And so from the caregiver perspective, I would counsel, you're just always in support mode till you're not. And just learn to read the room and know that sometimes disappearing and hands off is also support.
Yeah, I can add to that too. And I think as a practitioner on the support team, it is, of course, can be a tricky spot, because as I know Cindy mentioned, we want to, push our agenda to keep these people healthy as best they can and feeling good. But I also think, of course, there's a huge level of empathy and relationships with each individual, right? Every person is different in regards to how they respond to support and what they want and the way in which we provide the support. So I think having a relationship, of course, helps with that, and realizing that sometimes, like Brenda mentioned, sometimes there's just a bad day, and we recognize that. And just because we have one bad day doesn't mean the rest are going to be bad. And if I know that, my patient is working as hard as they absolutely can, and they're maybe not meeting the goals that we originally set, we create new goals, because every person is different. And it's just finding what works for that person, and celebrating the small wins too.
Well, thank you both. Brenda and Bill, how did you feel about asking for help when you needed it?
For me, I think it wasn't so hard, largely because I mean, when I came home from the hospital, I came with a feeding tube, which was, I had it for quite some time. So all my kids volunteered to be feeding me using the feeding tube. And of course, at first I was like, oh man, this is really not nice. I mean, I was feeling so helpless, I can't eat at that point, so I wasn't able to communicate very well with them. But I knew that was also important for them to know that they're helping mommy, that they're journeying with me, and they wanted to know that I appreciate their help. So they would take turns to, feed me using the feeding tube. My husband, on the other hand, also was, Cindy and Brittany have met Bobby. He's amazing. And he can get very pushy in a way, in a very nice way. So Bobby will be like, we're gonna eat. We have to do this. We have to do this. So sometimes I'm just like, and he will offer, even when I've not requested for it. He'll be like, okay, here is food. You have to eat it. And I would just politely say, you know what, when I need that food, I will ask for it. And when I'm ready to eat it, I will eat it. But then I will appreciate that, he's seen the need and he sees, he sees the value of offering that help. So for me, it wasn't very hard to ask for help, at least for my family setting. Again, when I came from hospital, I had wounds. I had wounds on my thigh. I had wounds on my neck. I had wounds on my right arm. So basically, I couldn't do anything on my own. So I had to rely on people literally to bathe me. I had to rely on people to clothe me. So in a way, but first, those were people who are very close to me. That's my husband and a very dear friend, So, I mean, I knew I needed that help. I wasn't going to run away from it and say, hey, I'm strong, I can do this. Oh my gosh, I'm very vulnerable. No, I knew I needed that help. And they knew they had to be there for me because they knew if they were not there to support me, then it would make things very, very bad and worse for me. So at that moment, in the first few months after I came from hospital, it was a given that they had to give me all the support, and I wasn't afraid to ask. But then later, as I was getting better, I was like, okay, now I can decide when I want to eat. Now I can decide at what duration do I need someone to help me. And slowly we've just, that's how we've been able to maneuver through this.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. We're coming.
Just real quickly, because I don't have a lot to say on this subject because I hate asking for help. So rarely did I ask for help. And I was so fortunate that I had people around me who were giving me wonderful and excellent care. So that my wife mainly, my extended family, and my medical team. I have a great speech therapist. I saw a dietitian. So I didn't have to ask for help very much, but sometimes I had to say to my wife, can you back off a little bit? Can you back off a little bit? I don't need constant supervision. So, and she was very, she earned that and accepted it.
I wanted to just acknowledge that we are at 12. So if people need to go, we want to thank you for coming and not to forget the next week's on the 26th, the next a holiday webinar that's being offered on festive, flavorful, and swallow-friendly holidays. But we also, also using the QR code for thank and for the Coral, using the code THANC, thank for your first prescription or refill, thank. But I also wanted to, if people are able to stay a few extra minutes, and that's okay with our panelists, as well. We do have at least one more video we'd love to show, and I would love to just do a little wrap up on people giving what is their final thoughts on advice for somebody that is headed into the holidays and managing or supporting your loved one around eating and food at the holidays. So let's watch our video and then we'll take some notes from the panels.
So we always worry about patients' ability to maintain weight and hydration during the course of treatment. We always try to engage a nutritionist to make sure that patients are able to maintain their weight and not get dehydrated.
So my advice regarding food and eating is really very specific to the patient's own capabilities. I think that just tailoring a patient's meal to what they are comfortable and able to eat is really the most important thing. And if it does involve eating a different diet, whatever they're capable of that they can do effectively and safely is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if everyone else is consuming something different. It's their presence and the ability to partake in whatever level they're capable of that is the most important thing.
So I'd love to, in our final moments together, if people have advice that they would like to share themselves about what were some strategies that worked for you, or what is some advice that you might give to someone that is just beginning this journey, or someone who is caring for someone else.
Well, I would say, sort of suggestions or advice. I said before, action is the antidote to anxiety. At least that's my feeling. So if you can take action, it doesn't have to be big, exercise. If it's just walking half a block and walking back home, and you'll be able to gain mileage as you go along. Start with something. See a dietitian. See a speech therapist. Ask about, if you're having trouble swallowing, ask about dilation and see if you're a candidate. Ask about swallow exercises and swallow therapy and see if you were a candidate. I eventually, and I didn't ask for this, I just took advantage of everything my medical team had to offer. And I did swallow exercise, I did swallow therapy. And eventually, after doing dilation, stretching of the esophagus by a tube, after doing it in surgery, then with my speech therapist in the clinic, I graduated to doing it at home. And now I do it once every couple of weeks at home. It takes 10 minutes, but it helps keep my esophagus open and helps me swallow. Just maintain togetherness as well, especially around the holiday. Be honest about your situation. People are generally good and will be understanding, especially if they're people who, you invite over to Thanksgiving, or you're invited to their house for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'll second that with Bill. I think people are generally good, and especially people that you're probably going to be sharing a meal with. But bigger or more globally, for maybe people who are on different, starting their cancer journey or on the other end, the importance of using the resources that are available to you in your community to find answers. The head and neck community is a very robust community, even if it's not very large. So there's a lot of information out there, and use the people in your life. Use the surgeons, use the radiation oncologist, the medical oncologist, the dietitian, the speech and swallowing specialist. We're not, even if we can't fix it, there's going to be sounding boards, and there's also just online support groups, and they're inpatient support groups. In-person support groups that are available to people. So you can find what, with other people who've gone through it, what works for some people. Now, with that said, what works for one person may not work for the other. So everybody's journey is different, but it's just nice to have that sharing environment to spark ideas and just to make a connection, so you're not feeling so isolated and alone.
And just to quickly add to what Cindy said about support groups, one in particular, if you're not already aware of it, is the SPONK group, which is national, I believe. And if you can't find a local group where they meet in person, there are virtual options. It's an acronym, and maybe we can add it to, I don't know, the chat, but it's SPOHNC. So support for people with oral head and neck cancer. And that can be a great resource too.
Yeah, and then the IAL, the International Association for Laryngectomies, is another good one that I'm sure Bill is with. And the national, the Head and Neck Cancer Alliance, I think would also be a good one, as well as the Thank Guide. I think we need to put to that as well.
And also ask your medical team, your facility, whether they host a support group, or if they don't, they will probably know of a local support group. But I second that thought. I'm a big believer in support group. I've been going them for 28 years. I still go to two, a laryngectomy group and a head and neck group. And my wife now facilitates a group for head and neck cancer caregivers through USC and USC CAC.
Yeah, from the caregiver perspective, going through the holidays, I would say to the person you're giving care to, you're the future. They don't know what to expect, and they read your face. And if you look like you're okay, they're gonna think that they're gonna be okay. And during the holidays, for the people around the person you're taking care of, you're the present. We hosted Thanksgiving every year, and we did it when Trish was down. And every person, when they walked through the front door, they didn't look at Trish, they looked at me like, what do we do? Is this going to be okay? And so it's important to represent a positive present and a positive future, because everybody's taking their cue from you.
Brenda, you have any final advice or thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think just be kind to yourself, especially if you're a patient and you're get into these festivities, and of course, it's gonna be a tough one, just managing the art of eating and interaction with people, but just be kind to yourself. And I think we already talked about here, if you're able to eat something before either the guests arrive or before you go out for that gathering, if that will make you be comfortable, be at ease, then do that. And even when you're there and things just don't go the way you anticipated, or things don't go so well, don't beat yourself. Don't beat yourself. As we also said here, people are kind. People will not look at you and think, man, she's lost it or he's lost it. No. People will love your presence. And so be there, be open-minded, be there to enjoy people's presence. And yeah, just have fun. And yeah, if it doesn't go the way you anticipated it should go, it is still fine. It's still okay. We'll have another Thanksgiving to enjoy, Adams, and I'm sure the next Thanksgiving you'll be so much better. You'll have made such headways to be able to munch more or drink more or talk a little more when you're with people. So there's always a good side of everything. If it doesn't work now, then you can always look forward to another great moment. And yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you all, Bill, Brittany, Cindy, John, Brenda. Really appreciate you taking the time today to share your experiences, your expertise, your passion and concern for not only your own families, but also sharing that with others and with us here. This has been really informative, and I hope it's been really helpful to those that have been listening in today. So I wanted to thank everybody once again for joining us today for Navigating Food and Family on the Cancer Journey. We're so grateful to our panelists for sharing their heartfelt stories, experiences, and practical advice. It's been incredibly insightful discussion. Once again, I also want to thank EISAI and Coral, whose generous support made this event possible. EISAI's generous commitment to empowering patients and caregivers has helped create the platform for these meaningful conversations. And don't forget about a Coral's special offer for attendees using the thank code THANC for your first prescription or refill thank, which is refill thank THANC for discounted refills. And before we go, one last plug for the free webinar next Tuesday, November 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Festive, flavorful, and swallow-friendly holiday cooking. The Head and Neck Cancer Alliance hosts this live cooking demonstration with expert dietitians who will provide great tips and recipes for the head and neck cancer survivors and their caregivers, perfect for the holiday season. So thank you once again for being part of today's event. We hope you found it inspiring and helpful as you navigate your own journey. Take care. We look forward to seeing you again real soon.